Well, again, it's a wonderful thing to see you here this morning and to be with you in fellowship with one another. And I saw a few come in a little bit after we had started, and I want to let you know that we're certainly glad to see you as well. And in these dire times when we're having to comply with rules and regulations, trying to control the spread of this virus, and we're doing a good job. We're doing a good job. We're all still here, and God's certainly been with us and blessed us, and I am grateful to see each and every one of you here this morning. In light of what we're talking about, dealing with this virus and things that are going around, and you probably have seen some of the things that I have seen on social media and talk among people. There are a lot of people that are equating things that are happening around us and trying to point to it and say, see, this is the end times. This is the tribulation. We're in the middle of this and we're in the middle of that. And they're pointing their finger at the book of Revelation and trying to say that this is happening and this is what's going on right now. And so I'm centered my lesson around one of these issues that they're talking about. And one of the things that they're trying to say is that this vaccine, once it comes out, and they have some vaccine already made, they're working on it, that when you take it, they give it to you that they're going to put a microchip inside the vaccine, so when they inject you with it, that microchip is in there. Another one is said that they have bracelets that are called I can't remember the term they use now, but this shackles, that was a type of shackle that when they put it on you, it bonds to you in some way. It becomes a permanent bonding. It's a bracelet. And in that bracelet is a microchip that contains the fact that you had the vaccination, plus a lot of other things about that. I watched a news article on that just the other day. And so many people are trying to say, that's it, that's the mark of the beast. That's what that's talking about. You have to have that mark of the beast, and so on and so forth. And beloved, that's not what that is. And that's what we're going to talk about this morning. That is fear-mongering. That is trying to instill fear in people. Beloved, the world around us needs to have a fear of God, and they need to repent and come to the Lord, but they don't need to do it just because they're afraid of something that's not real. God is real. The fact that He will judge us according to His word, and judgment is coming. It's appointed unto man once to die. That should be sufficient to cause man to want to repent. I was talking to one of my friends I went to school with the other day, and he said, oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to take that vaccine. I'm not going to do that. That's the mark of the beast. He firmly believes that. So let's look into that today. And let's look at what the Bible has to say. And let's use some logic as we look at this and pay attention to what's going on. This mark of the beast that they're talking about comes from the book of Revelation. So turn with me to the book of Revelation. Look at chapter 1. Chapter 1, verse 1, first of all. And let's look at what John says. John was on the Isle of Patmos, and there's a little bit of a confusion as to when he actually probably penned this, but the majority of the scholars say that he wrote this around 95 AD, well after Jerusalem had been destroyed. Jerusalem was destroyed in 70 AD by the Roman army. So he was in prison on the Isle of Patmos. And he penned this. And look what he says here in chapter 1, verse 1. About halfway down, he says, to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. The Lord wouldn't have put that in there if it wasn't shortly going to come to pass. And here we are, some 2,000 plus years after the fact. No, that's not right. He's already telling you these things are going to shortly come to pass. He wrote this to the 7 churches which were in Asia, which were under suppression by the Roman government. They were being persecuted. We all know the story about the playing the fiddle while Rome burned, and he blamed it on the Christians. The Christians were being persecuted and put into prison. Well, we're not going to spend all the time talking about that, but they were under persecution. They needed to know what was happening. They needed to know there was a light at the end of the tunnel. And John was writing this to them and telling them very clearly, it will shortly come to pass. That means everything that we're reading in the Scriptures after that verse is shortly coming to pass. And he lets them know more than one time that these things are fixing to happen. He doesn't say that just once and lets it go. He tells them more than one time that things are going to happen quickly and in order. As a matter of fact, look in chapter 22 and verse 10. Revelation 22 and verse 10. And what's it say there? And he said unto me, seal not the sayings of the prophecy of this book. Why? For the time is at hand. That phraseology, the time is at hand, means it's fixing to happen. That term means, for instance, this songbook. This songbook is at hand for me. It's right here where I can reach it. I don't have to get up and walk somewhere and find it. It's right here at hand. That terminology, the prophecies of this book are at hand, and things are fixing to happen. They're fixing to happen right now. Fixing to start unfolding. So that doesn't entail having something encrypted in apocryphal language, hidden from the understanding of those who were reading it at that time, that's going to happen several thousand years down the road. That's not right. And to take things out of context and make them apply to certain situations, are there some things we can associate with that? Yes, there's some things we can associate, but those are associations. That doesn't mean that's exactly what's taking place. Sin is sin. Whether it was done 3,000 years ago or it's done now, it's still sin. And we can still find associations with that. So let's look at this scripture. Let's look at what's happening here and understand what's taking place. In this, we find the story in the 13th chapter of the book of Revelation. You'll turn there with me. We're going to read the first 10 verses, then we're going to talk about them. We don't have the luxury of all the time in the world here this morning, and we're not going to do that. We're going to get to it quickly. So let's read the first 10 verses in the chapter 13 together. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads this name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth is the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast. And they worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. And power was given unto him to continue 42 months. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, and then to dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints, and to overcome them. And the power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of the life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. What we're talking about here is apocryphal language. This is not to be taken literal. John saw this in a vision. He tells you he was looking at a vision. There is not a real beast that has an appearance like what he sees. This was symbolic. This was a political power that we are seeing. Political power, the crowns, the authority, the paws of a bear. What does a bear do? It has tremendous strength in its paws. It can slap you and kill you with one blow. The lion, authority, a terrible bite, a killer. Leopard, fast and quick. We are seeing symbolic images here of who? Of the Caesar, of the political leader of Rome. We're seeing him. But keep in mind that John was imprisoned. He was under the authority of the Roman people. He was in prison. And he had to send out letters, and to send out a letter, he had to do so in a way that they couldn't figure out what he's talking about. They read everything. They knew everything that he did. And at this time, when the church was still in its infancy, approximately 95 A.D., the church had been in existence for some maybe 50 years, 60 years, somewhere, give or take a few. There were still people who had the gift of knowledge and the gift of prophecy. And they were able to read this and understand it and translate it to those who were listening. Plus, they had to understand what he was writing about. Even at that time, what would be the point to write a letter to someone about something they could not understand? How could that give them comfort? It can't. So those that read this letter understood this letter. Can we understand it today? Absolutely, or we wouldn't have it here to read, would we? Well, how do we understand everything that's happening? We need to know a little bit about history. We need to know a little bit about what was happening at that time, and we have lots of resources that show us those things. It's not hard to understand this. It's not hard to read it and understand what's going on. It takes a little bit of time and a little bit of patience, but you can understand everything that's going on here. What we are talking about here is the Caesar, political power, the beast rising from the sea. He is in charge, and he was worshipped. He had orders to be worshipped. They had to worship him. The Edict of Milan came along about 313 A.D., and it was an agreement to treat Christians benevolently within the Roman Empire. That was at 313. But what was happening before that? They were being persecuted. They were being killed. Constantine had a great deal to do in helping Christians, but he also created problems for them, which we're going to talk about. And that's what we're getting into at the latter part of this chapter. The dragon, that is the devil. The dragon is the devil. He gave Caesar power. He had the authority given to him by God to empower this man to do things. Look at verse 2. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard. Notice he says like, and he didn't say he was. Okay. And his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power to eat, and his seat and great authority. The devil blessed this man to do what? To wreak havoc, to persecute, to punish. The devil had already lost. They had already lost their war dealing with Christ. There was nothing else they could do. He thought he'd won working through Judas, and we've killed the Lamb of God. He's not going to do any good, and he just rose from the dead. In Ephesians, we find that all the things that he did when he entered into the Holy of Holies and sprinkled his blood, all those things he did after he rose. So the devil thought he won, but no, he didn't. So now there's nothing else he can do. What can he do to persecute the church? To do that with the power on earth that's strong enough to do that? And he did work him through Rome, because Rome was pagan. They worshiped all kinds of gods. They stole a lot of them from the Greeks. They even stole their sculptures and the names of their gods and changed those and made them into something else. They were a power to be reckoned with. And no greater force or more wicked force has ever existed. The Roman army was vicious, and Caesar, the one who led them, was that way. And I saw one of his heads were wounded. He took a blow. He took a blow. And we will find that happened when they were conquered. Pagan Rome was destroyed about 476. Okay? And it was wounded. But it was rose again, and which we'll read about that here in a moment. Verse 4, and they worshipped the dragon. He had busts of himself all over the kingdom. Everywhere Rome's empire was, they had busts of Caesar, because they had to pay homage to Caesar. Not only did they have to send their money to him, but they essentially had to worship that man. And that's what it's talking about here. And of course, Christians won't do that. They would not. There was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. He condemned the Lord. He talked about Christians. He talked about the temple. Notice it says in verse 6, and he opened his mouth and blasphemies against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle. And what is the tabernacle? It's the church. He criticized the church. He ridiculed the church. He persecuted Christians. The Christians would still meet in Rome, but they had to go down into the catacombs beneath the city and worship there. They talk about that. The historians talk about that. They would meet in secluded, dark areas inside the catacombs and have church, because if they publicly did it, they would be killed. He was a wicked man. And notice in verse 7, and it was given unto him to make war with the saints, and to overcome them, and the power was given to him over all kindreds and tongues and nations, all over. He dominated all over. It didn't matter where the saints were. It didn't matter what country. You're Christian, you're going to be persecuted. Not hard to understand this. Historical evidence proves this. Look at verse 8. And all that dwell upon the earth, all of the known world at that time, it was conquered by Rome. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names, notice it says, whose names are not written in the book of the Lamb of Life. Those who are not saved, those who are not Christians. Christians know better. Christians won't. But others will. And notice what else it says. Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. That's talking about our Lord. From before the foundation of the world, God knew that he would give his son to die on the cross of Calvary. He knew and could formulate strategy and plan and think ahead, because he knew what was going to take place. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 20. 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 9. And Ephesians 2, 8 and 9 are verses that talk about that. And state very clearly that from before the foundation of the world, he knew what he would do. If any man have an ear, let him hear. In other words, you need to listen. You need to listen to what I'm telling you, people. In verse 10 is very important. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be what? Killed with the sword. Notice what John says. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. Christianity is not spread by the sword. Romans led with the sword, didn't they? There are other religions in the world that have forced themselves upon others. And if you don't listen, they're going to kill you. That's wrong. And that's what John was talking about here. He talks about the patience of the saints. What are we patient for? We're long-suffering, not willing that any should perish. Why? Because God's that way. Do we teach over and over and again? Do we talk to people? Do we invite them to church? Absolutely. Do we keep asking? Yes. Do we keep offering a Bible study? Yes. Do we keep teaching the truth? Yes. Does everyone listen? No. But we're patient. Just as God is patient. We don't force anyone. God doesn't even force us, does He? So this is talking about those that are in the world, and the way the world is different than what a Christian is. Let's start with verse 11 now. We're going to read to the end of the chapter. And we're going to be talking about the second beast here. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. Let me stop right there just for a second. Wolves in sheep's clothing. He looks like a lamb. He looks tender and nice and soft and timid. He won't hurt you. But he speaks as what? A dragon. He talks as the devil. Where do we find that? We find that in Timothy. Doctrines of demons. The devil will pretend to be an angel of light if he has to deceive you. So we have the beast, the second beast here, is one of deception, pretending to be on what? On the Christian side. But they're not. And he exercises, verse 12, and he exercises all the power of the first beast. Why? Because the first beast, the Caesar, is behind him, giving him his strength, giving him his authority. And causes the earth and them that dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. This second beast rose up and essentially healed the first beast and assumed the position of the first beast in authority and caused everyone to still worship him. He doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image, or we use the word icon, statue, to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. He had authority, life and death, in other words. If you're not going to worship, as we were telling you, you have to worship, then you're going to die. Persecution of the Christians. Verse 16, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. And this is where they're coming up with the mark of the beast. And that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark of the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. In other words, this is wisdom. Listen, guys. Here's wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. Not a particular man, a man. And his number is 666, where we get the number 666. In the Bible, you'll find that numbers are symbolic in meaning. 3 and 7 are good numbers. Perfect. 7 is the perfect number. 7 represents God. 6 represents man. Imperfect. We are imperfect. We cannot be perfect without God's help. So 6 represents man. 7 represents God. The name, the mark in their foreheads and the mark on their hand, this is all symbolic too. This is not literal. See, the world around us is trying to make us become literal. Beloved, we belong to God. Why you got your finger? Hold your finger there. We turn over to Revelation chapter 22, verse 4. Revelation 22, verse 4. And what does this say? It says, "And they shall see his face, and his name shall be in their foreheads." Past tense, shall be. It already is. These are Christians. We're Christians here this morning. We're gathered together. We have names stamped in our foreheads? No, we don't, do we? Look at Revelation chapter 7, verse 3. Revelation chapter 7, verse 3. Saying, "Hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads." That's symbolic. It's not literal. It's not meant to be taken literally. While you're there, turn to Revelation 9, verse 4. Revelation 9 and verse 4. "And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads." Sealed. Well, we can look back in the Scriptures and we find that we're sealed with what? Sealed with the Holy Spirit of promise. We are not literally stamped and marked like merchandise. That is not what this is talking about. We are sealed with the Holy Spirit of promise. Look in Revelation chapter 14, verse 1. "And I looked, and lo, a Lamb stood on the Mount Sion, and with him 144,000, having his Father's name written where? In their foreheads." So we have 144,000. That's a perfect number. That's a symbolic number. We know it's symbolic because we can turn in the book of Revelation and find that before the throne of God, before the Lord, there is a sea, meaning a mass of people from all kindred, all nations, all tongues, a number that no man can number. So are we taking this literally? Are we supposed to take it literally? No. What did John just say? "Here is wisdom. Let he that has understanding." We need to learn to read and listen. And we'll understand. This is not a literal statement that we're going to have stamps and numbers, or number 666 or whatever. The people have gone so far as to look through history and find people. Hitler was one of them. Took his name and used the Greek process of using numbers with letters instead of numbers, and Hitler spells out 666. So we can take this and run with it and make up all kinds of things, or we can just stop for a minute and think and listen to God and remember that we are in spiritual warfare. We're not in a physical war. "Fear not he that can destroy the body, but he that can destroy both the body and soul in hell." It matters not what happens to this body. What matters is what happens to our soul. Pagan Rome was destroyed in AD 476 when barbarian hordes of the north devastated the empire. They came through and they whipped up on them pretty good. And which ended with the western part of the pagan Rome. The spotted leopard coming up out of the sea, as we were reading about, what represents the Roman papacy, the authority. That's what that means, the ones who are in authority, and that would be Caesar, which carried on Satan's power against the church in spite of the deadly blow against the pagan Rome. Constantine comes onto the scene, and he becomes a Christian because he's in a battle with them, and as he's fighting, he sees a symbol of a burning cross in the sky, and he says, "Oh, that's a sign I need to become a Christian." And he works diligently trying to get all the religions, pagan and Christian, to come together. Constantinople is an example of that, where he tried to make that the seat of all the religion. It didn't work. He stayed in Rome, where it even is today. Okay? But he tried in 325 A.D. He started up the Council of Nicaea. They came out with the first human creed, and they developed the policy of what the Holy Trinity was at that time, that the Roman Catholic Church still holds to today. And he formulated, matter of fact, he headed that council for a while. In 533, the church went into hiding. Why? Because they were being persecuted by Rome still at that time, which those would be the leaders in Rome and the papacy at that time. And we have for 1,260 years. All of this is history that I'm giving you that correlates exactly with what is in the scriptures we just read. The first pope appears on the scene beginning around 588. They already were there. They were already in authority. There was a head bishop, but they didn't claim to be the pope until about that time. They started using that terminology. As a matter of fact, they developed the rules and the guidelines that they follow. And from the letters of the great encyclical letters of Pope Leo VIII, he states clearly, we hold, and he's talking about the popes and the church at that time, we hold upon the earth the place of Almighty God. That's in history books. That's on page 305 if you want to go read it for yourself. That mentality is still held even to this day. And I'm not going to go into a complete history lesson and tell you all the things, but I'm trying to help you understand that this is not what people in the world are trying to make it today. They're trying to say, oh, they're going to keep track of you. They're going to know what you spend and where you're going and what you love. And they already do that. They've been able to do that for a long time. Every time you go write a check, they knew where you spent your money. Every time you use your credit card, your bank card, every time you go online, they know where you're going, what you're doing. They know where you're spending your money. If you have a cell phone, they're tracking where you are. They can look and see anytime they know where you are. They're already doing all those things that the religious world out there trying to say they're fixing to do that when they put that chip on you. No, they're already doing that. And they've been doing that for many, many years. Have you ever tried to go down to the grocery store and spend something other than American money? You cannot buy anything in there without the authority of the federal government saying, yes, you can. They already have that control. They already have all of this. So quit listening to the fantasy world outside and start listening to what God is trying to tell you. In verse 17, it says, "And that no man might buy or sell." I have another quote from the papacy, and I'll give you the details to it here in just a moment. Listen to what it said. Now, they're talking about not letting people buy, sell. They can already do that. Just during this crisis, what have they done? Shut down businesses. Shut down commerce. They already have that control. They've had it. this is talking about what's happening back in about 95 to 325 AD. Listen to this. If any, observed Bishop Newton, dissident from the stated and authorized forms, in other words, if you don't agree with the Catholic Church at that time, then that's fine. They are condemned, he says, and excommunicated as heretics. And in consequence of that, they are no longer suffered or allowed to buy or sell. They are interdicted from traffic and commerce. In other words, you're not allowed to travel, you're not allowed to sell, you're not allowed to have any economic influence whatsoever, and all the benefits of civil society. So Roger Hovington relates of the William the Conqueror that he was so dutiful to the Pope that he would not permit anyone in his power to buy or sell anything whom he found disobedient to the apostolic say. So the canon of the Council of Laterna under Pope Alexander III made against the Waldenses and the Albigenses enjoins upon pain of anathema, or put to death, that no man presume to entertain or cherish them in his house or land, or exercise traffic with them. That's in the history books. And that's what John was talking about. Those Christians were so persecuted, they couldn't do anything. They were under that much torment in the time that this book was written. And yet people want to apply it to today. Remember the scriptures I gave you just a moment ago. These things shall shortly come to pass. The time is at hand. Revelation 22, remember? And of course, we talked about what the number of the man is. The 666 means that you've come up short. And to say it 3 times, 666, is to say that you are short of the quality that God wants you to have. You are not perfect. You are come up short. And of course, worshiping the man rather than God. Paul talks about that, doesn't he, in Romans. Giving up the Creator, they turned in what? Worship the man. And what we were talking about here in history, Caesar was the one to be worshipped. And he empowered the early church as through Constantine. He persecuted, and then Constantine brought about the equalization and made it where it was legal to be a Christian, but then those that he put in charge manipulated and twisted things and started using the authority of the Roman Empire to empower themselves. And through that, they continued the persecution, so much so that the church went into hiding for 1,260 years. Was it gone away? No. It was just in hiding. And anyone that rebelled against it, they even had their own soldiers. They even had their own soldiers, the Catholic Church did. And you can read about that. This is talking about Christian persecution, period. Not about something that's supposed to be happening today. Not about the end times. Beloved, John said very clearly, even now are we in the end times. Back when he wrote 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John. So we need to listen and look and learn to pay attention. And realize when God says something, He means it. If He said this is shortly going to happen, then it's shortly going to happen. Because what the 7 churches that John wrote to, this meant something to them. Then, when they read it, not some future couple of 3,000 years down the road. That doesn't even make sense. Just as God says, we need to study to show ourselves approved unto God, a workman that needs not be ashamed, what? Rightly dividing the word of God. So we need to put those worries aside, those fears of, oh, this is the end time. Beloved, it is the end times, and the Lord can come back tomorrow, and I hope that He does. Matter of fact, we need to start having the attitude that Paul has. Ever looking and longing what? For the Lord's return. We want Him to come, because to be present with Him is far better than being here. But just as Paul said, it's needful for me to be here. We need to be here because we need to help those that don't know the truth. If you're here this morning and you need the prayers of the church, you need us to help you in some way, we're here for you. We love you. God most certainly does. We will help you in any way that we can. We're going to sing the invitation song now, and if you need the help in some way, once you come, while together we stand.